The Mississippi River flowed silently, its waters reflecting the deepening hues of twilight. The river, a lifeline for so many, seemed almost to hold its breath as the day transitioned into night. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow that danced on the water's surface. The sky was a canvas of oranges, pinks, and purples, a final burst of color before the darkness took over. It was April 27, 1865, a date that would soon be etched into the annals of history, remembered for both its beauty and its tragedy. The air was thick with the coming of night, a palpable sense of anticipation hanging over the river. The twilight sky, a deepening blue, mirrored the calm yet foreboding waters below. Near Memphis, Tennessee, a sidewheel steamboat, the SS Sultana, churned north against the river's current. Its paddle wheels sliced through the water, creating ripples that spread out in its wake. On board, a human cargo, more precious than any cotton bale, dreamed of home. These were men who had endured the unimaginable, now seeking solace in the gentle rocking of the boat. They were unaware of the horror that awaited them. The night was serene, and the promise of a new beginning seemed within reach. The Civil War had finally ended. The nation, weary from years of conflict, was beginning to heal. Celebrations had erupted across the land, marking the end of a dark chapter in American history. For the men aboard the Sultana, the war was a nightmare from which they were eager to awaken. They had fought bravely, endured captivity, and now they yearned for the simple joys of life. They were Union soldiers, recently released from Confederate prison camps. Their bodies bore the marks of their suffering, but their spirits were buoyed by the hope of reunion with loved ones. The war had ravaged the nation. Cities lay in ruins, fields were scarred by battle, and the land itself seemed to mourn the loss of so many lives. It had ravaged them too. These men, once strong and full of life, were now shadows of their former selves. Their eyes, hollow and haunted, spoke of the horrors they had witnessed. They were weak, emaciated, and scarred. Each scar told a story of survival, of battles fought and comrades lost. They carried these marks with them, a testament to their resilience. They longed for the comfort of their families. They longed for peace. The thought of home, of familiar faces and warm embraces, was a beacon of hope in the darkness. The Sultana, they believed, was their vessel to both. It was more than just a means of transport. It was a symbol of their journey back to normalcy, to a life that had been put on hold by the ravages of war. The paddle wheel turned steadily, each rotation bringing them closer to their destination. The rhythmic sound was almost hypnotic, a steady heartbeat in the quiet night. On deck, soldiers shared stories of battles fought and friends lost. There was a sense of camaraderie, a bond forged in the fires of war that would not easily be broken. As stars began to appear in the night sky, the river took on an almost magical quality. The water shimmered under the starlight, and for a moment, the world seemed at peace. One soldier, deep in thought, gazed out over the water. His mind wandered to the future, to the life he hoped to build once he returned home. The promise of tomorrow was a powerful motivator. The Sultana moved steadily through the night, its passengers unaware of the fate that awaited them. For now, they were content to dream of home, of peace, and of a future free from the shadows of war. The atmosphere on the decks of the Sultana was a mixture of anticipation and relief. Laughter mingled with coughs. The soldiers, packed tightly on the steamboat, were a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Each face told a story of survival, of battles fought and won, and of the hope that kept them going through the darkest times. The air was thick with the scent of the river and the sounds of camaraderie, as these men, who had faced the worst of humanity, now looked forward to a brighter future. Songs of freedom competed with the rhythmic churning of the paddle wheel. The melodies, though rough and unpolished, carried a sense of liberation that was palpable. Each note was a declaration of their newfound freedom, a stark contrast to the silence and oppression they had endured. The paddle wheel's steady beat was like a heartbeat, a reminder that life continued to move forward, carrying them closer to the homes they had longed for. The soldiers' voices, though weary, were filled with a renewed sense of purpose and joy. These men had survived the horrors of war and captivity. Their faces, etched with lines of fatigue and relief, were a testament to their endurance. They had faced unimaginable trials, from the brutal conditions of the battlefield to the harsh realities of imprisonment. Yet through it all, they had held on to a glimmer of hope, a belief that they would one day return to their loved ones. Now, as they stood on the deck of the Sultana, that hope was becoming a reality. The relief was almost tangible, a weight lifted from their shoulders. Now, they were finally going home. The thought of reuniting with their families and friends filled them with a sense of excitement and anticipation. They imagined the warm embraces, the joyful tears, and the stories they would share. Each soldier had a unique vision of home, a place where they could find peace and solace after the chaos of war. The journey ahead was still long, but the promise of home gave them the strength to keep moving forward. It was a beacon of light guiding them through the remaining darkness. The journey had been long and arduous, from the battlefields to the prison camps, and now on this overcrowded steamboat, they had faced countless challenges. Each step of the way had tested their resolve and their will to survive, but through it all, they had remained steadfast, driven by the hope of returning home. As they reflected on their journey, they thought of the comrades they had lost and the sacrifices they had made. Their journey was not just a physical one, but an emotional and spiritual one as well. From the depths of Confederate prisons to this overcrowded vessel, their spirits had remained unbroken. Despite the cramped conditions and the lingering effects of their ordeals, they found ways to keep their spirits high. They shared stories, sang songs, and supported each other. The camaraderie among the soldiers was a source of strength, a reminder that they were not alone in their struggles. They had formed bonds that would last a lifetime, forged in the fires of war and tempered by their shared experiences. The promise of home was a beacon, guiding them through the darkness. It was the light at the end of the tunnel, the goal that kept them moving forward. Each soldier clung to the hope of reuniting with their loved ones, of finding peace and normalcy after the chaos of war. This hope was a powerful force, giving them the strength to endure the hardships they faced. It was a reminder that no matter how dark the times, there was always a glimmer of light to guide them. They had endured unimaginable hardships, from the brutal conditions of the battlefield to the harsh realities of imprisonment. They had faced challenges that tested their limits. Yet, through it all, they had shown incredible resilience. They had found ways to survive, to keep going even when it seemed impossible. Their strength and determination were a testament to the human spirit's ability to endure and overcome. They had faced the worst and come out the other side, stronger and more determined than ever. They had witnessed the darkest depths of humanity. The horrors of war had shown them the worst that people could do to each other. They had seen suffering and cruelty on a scale that was hard to comprehend. These experiences had left their mark, shaping their views and their understanding of the world. But even in the darkest times, they had found moments of kindness and compassion. These moments were a reminder that even in the worst of times, there was still good to be found. But amidst the suffering, hope had taken root. It was a small, fragile thing at first, but it grew stronger with each passing day. Hope was what kept them going, what gave them the strength to endure. It was the belief that things would get better, that they would one day return to their loved ones. This hope was a powerful force, a light in the darkness that guided them through the toughest times. It was a reminder that no matter how bad things got, there was always a reason to keep going. Hope bloomed in their hearts. It was a source of strength and resilience, a reminder that they had something to look forward to. As they stood on the deck of the Sultana, looking out at the horizon, they felt a sense of optimism and anticipation. The journey ahead was still long, but they knew they would make it. They had come this far, and they would not give up now. Hope was their guiding star, leading them home. The SS Sultana was built for 376 passengers. Over 2,000 souls crowded her decks. Most were Union soldiers, their gaunt frames a testament to the horrors they had endured. The air reeked of sweat, sickness, and desperation. The Sultana was a ticking time bomb. Her boilers, long overdue for repair, strained under the immense weight. Captain Mason, pressured by both time and greed, ignored the warning signs. The hissing steam, the ominous groans of the engine, these were mere inconveniences to a man driven by profit. The stage was set for a tragedy. Section 4. Greed's Grim Toll. Captain Mason's greed knew no bounds. Each soldier represented a payout from the government. The more he crammed aboard the Sultana, the larger his profit. He ignored the pleas of his crew. He disregarded the safety of his passengers. In his eyes, they were not men, but cargo. The Mississippi River was notorious for its treacherous currents. The Sultana, already dangerously overloaded, was a disaster waiting to happen. But Mason, blinded by greed, steamed ahead. He gambled with the lives of those entrusted to him, and in the darkness, fate awaited his hand. Section 5. Inferno on the river. 3 miles north of Memphis, the inevitable occurred. The overstrained boilers of the Sultana exploded. The blast ripped through the night, a deafening roar that shook the very riverbed. The wooden deck splintered and buckled. Men were hurled into the air like rag dolls. Fire spread with terrifying speed. The screams of the dying mingled with the roar of the flames. The river, once a symbol of hope, became a graveyard. Men engulfed in flames leaped into the icy water. Some drowned beneath the weight of their comrades. Others succumbed to the cold. The night was a symphony of suffering. Section 6. In the shadow of history. The Sultana disaster claimed the lives of over 1,800 people. This tragic event occurred on April 27, 1865, when the steamboat Sultana, overloaded with recently released Union prisoners of war, exploded on the Mississippi River near Memphis, Tennessee. The boat was designed to carry only 376 passengers, but on that fateful night, it was packed with over 2,300 people, most of them soldiers returning home from the Civil War. It was the deadliest maritime disaster in U.S. history. The explosion tore through the boat's decks, sending hundreds into the cold, swift waters of the Mississippi. Many drowned, while others succumbed to their injuries or the frigid temperatures. The scale of the disaster was unprecedented, and the loss of life was staggering. Yet it remains shrouded in relative obscurity. Despite the magnitude of the tragedy, the Sultana disaster is not widely known or remembered. It is a stark contrast to other historical events of the time, which have been extensively documented and commemorated. The nation, still reeling from the Civil War, was slow to grasp the magnitude of the tragedy. The war had left the country deeply scarred, with countless lives lost and communities devastated. In the midst of this turmoil, the Sultana disaster was just one more heartbreak in a sea of sorrow. Newspapers, preoccupied with the assassination of President Lincoln, gave the disaster scant coverage. The nation was still in shock from the loss of its leader, and the news of the Sultana's fate was overshadowed by the events in Washington, D.C. The limited press coverage meant that many people were unaware of the true scale of the disaster. The nation, exhausted from years of war, seemed unable to absorb the enormity of yet another tragedy. The soldiers who survived the explosion faced a long and difficult journey home, many of them suffering from severe injuries and trauma. The emotional and physical toll of the disaster was immense, and the survivors struggled to rebuild their lives in the aftermath. The victims of the Sultana, many of them unidentified, were laid to rest in hastily dug graves along the river. The sheer number of casualties overwhelmed the local communities, and the burials were often done quickly and without proper identification. Many families never knew the final resting place of their loved ones, adding to the heartbreak and loss. Their sacrifice, their suffering, faded into the annals of history. Over time, the memory of the Sultana disaster has been largely forgotten, overshadowed by the larger events of the Civil War and Reconstruction. Yet, the story of the Sultana and its passengers is a poignant reminder of the human cost of war and the fragility of life. It is a chapter in history that deserves to be remembered and honored, a testament to the resilience and courage of those who endured unimaginable hardship.